So today we are talking about how my marriage ended. It's a spiritual and emotional investigation into the man I married. I did not walk into my marriage blind. I walked in hopeful. I believed marriage was sacred, spiritual alignment, not just a legal bond. I prayed before saying yes. I fasted. I asked God for peace, for signs, for clarity. When nothing screamed no, I took the silence as permission and the calm as confirmation. Looking back, I understand now silence is not always approval. Sometimes it is an invitation to discern more deeply. The man I thought I married, he presented himself as spiritually disciplined, not loud or performative, but serious, measured. He spoke often about destiny, spiritual forces, protection, and alignment. At the time, I interpreted this as depth. In a world full of shallow promises, he seemed anchored to something ancient and powerful. He avoided certain foods. Certain days mattered more than others. He believed energy was real, words were dangerous, and silence was wisdom. I thought I was marrying a man of faith. What I didn't understand then was the difference between faith and fear, between spirituality and control. So, the marriage did not collapse suddenly. It fractured slowly in ways that felt easy to accuse. There was rules that were never explained, only enforced. Rooms I wasn't meant to enter, objects I wasn't meant to touch, questions I wasn't meant to ask. When I did ask, he never became angry. That was the unsettling part. He smiled. He spoke softly. He reminded me that trust was a virtue and that too much curiosity could invite trouble. Spiritually, I became confused. I prayed more, but felt less peace. I slept beside my husband, but felt increasingly alone. I was married, yet spiritually exposed. When the spirit began to warn me, there's a kind of knowing that doesn't come from evidence, it comes from disturbance. I began waking at night with a heaviness in my chest, not fear exactly, more like resistance. My body reacted before my mind could justify anything. I lost appetite. My dreams became vivid and symbolic. I dreamt of locked doors, hidden rooms, blood washed away by water. I told myself I was overthinking, but the spirit does not shout, it whispers until you can no longer ignore it. This was the investigation I never planned to conduct. The day I found the box was not dramatic, it was ordinary. I was cleaning, I was calm, I was unprepared. Inside were items I had no framework to explain away. Ritual objects, written symbols, preserved remains, containers sealed with markings I recognized only from stories I had never believed applied to my life. So in that moment, love stopped being the lens through which I saw my marriage. Survivor took over. I didn't scream. I didn't collapse. I sat on the floor and breathed because something inside me stayed clear headed. When I confronted him, I expected denial. Instead, I got the theology. He spoke of inheritance, of power, of responsibility, of covenants older than marriage vows. He said nothing. He said not everything was evil just because it was hidden. He said sacrifice didn't always mean death, it meant obedience. That was the moment I understood something crucial. I was not married to a man hiding a secret. I was married to a man whose entire worldview depended on secrecy. The spiritual line I could not cross. He asked me to stay silent, not for safety but for loyalty. He said speaking would bring consequences, not as threat, but as a spiritual fact, as if the universe itself would punish disobedience. That was a line. Faith should never require the erasure of conscience. Marriage should never demand the burial of truth. Love should never feel spiritual like suffocation. I realized then that staying would mean participating, if not actively, then by consent. Silence would make me complicit. Staying would mean slowly unrecognizing myself. Living without noise, I left without noise. I didn't expose him publicly. I didn't seek revenge. I didn't dramatize my exit. I left with quiet urgency. One bag, my documents, and my dignity. People asked questions I couldn't fully answer. Some doubted me, some told me to pray harder, submit more, endure longer, but endurance is not always holy. Sometimes living is the most spiritual act available. The moment I left, something shifted. My sleep returned. My prayers felt heard again. My body softened. Peace didn't come because everything made sense. It came because I was no longer violating myself to maintain a marriage. What this experience taught me, I learned that evil does not always look violent. Sometimes it looks organized, purposeful, spiritualized. I learned that discernment is not paranoia, it is wisdom sharpened by listening. And I learned that marriage is not just who you love, it is about what you are aligning your spirit with. My marriage ended not because I failed to love, but because I refused to lose myself in the name of love. I walked away, not empty, but awake. So, farms, if you were to be in our shoes, what will you do? Please, I need your honest opinion. Would you like to walk away quietly from that marriage? Or would you like to announce to the world what the so-called husband is into? So please give me your suggestion in the comment section below. Thank you all.